Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. I've always been a fan of sport, with a particular passion for athletics. The 28th of July 2022 saw the start of yet another Commonwealth Games, which officially got underway in Birmingham, UK. Previous games have been hosted in Manchester, which was in 2002, and Glasgow. And my dear friend Hannah and I were excited that it was being hosted yet again on home soil, as well as being fortunate enough to have purchased tickets for various sessions, including the opening ceremony. The Games in Birmingham is the 22nd Games, which first began 92 years ago in Hamilton, Canada, when Britain still had an empire and before George VI, father of the current monarch Queen Elizabeth I, had even come to the throne. The Games have grown significantly, with now around 5,000 athletes representing 72 nations participating across 19 different sports. The estimated cost in public funding for the Games is around £800 million, but the final figure will probably be confirmed in a year or two's time. Hannah and I both share a love for all things athletics, and we have attended many events over the years: Olympic Games, European and World Championships, the Paralympics, as well as the Commonwealth Games in previous years, and we'd talk about the athletes and the various disciplines taking place during the sessions that we'd be attending, as well as looking back over all the other games that we had attended and indulge in many, many shared memories. However, our conversation took on a different direction when Hannah raised the issue regarding the criticism and divided opinion about the significance of the Commonwealth Games and its link to colonialism, empire, slavery, and the concept of satellite territories revolving around a mother state. There has always been this discussion in regards to whether or not the concept of the friendly games is an outdated one, and with the constant talk of reparations and an increase in member states considering becoming republics, should the games be cancelled altogether? Throughout all the times that I've attended these events and up to this point of this particular dialogue that we were having, I'd never discussed empire and colonialism within the context of sport. It had never really crossed my mind, but now I began to think more deeply about the issue. Is Britain merely using the Games for virtue signalling and or to perpetuate some kind of propaganda? After all, Britain has been able to achieve something that no other European colonial power has been able to do, and that is to maintain some form of relationship with their former colonies outside of political interests in controlling natural resources. As I watched the Parade of Nations around Alexander Stadium, I recognised that several states which had become republics, such as South Africa, Sri Lanka, Trinidad and Tobago, and more recently Barbados, were all still represented by their athletes. Hannah and I came to the conclusion that if these nations were willing participants, then the other 68 nations must be participating in the Games of their own free will, and what may be perceived as propaganda could actually be pride in a legacy that signifies and celebrates a common identity and unity. We could not help but feel a sense of pride when certain countries made their way around the stadium, such as Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and other African nations such as Ghana, and to a certain extent, England. I realised that the Games were not just a celebration of sport, but also an opportunity to acknowledge my roots. And I'm certain that this was also the case for many other spectators that night. This is the one event where Britain itself recognises the ethnic groups within its own island, acknowledging its past as a product of invasion and conquest. Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Do you feel like you're stuck in a dinner rut? With HelloFresh, you get fresh pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. With over 25 recipes to choose from each week, there is something for everyone to enjoy. All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. Just go to the link in our show notes to get 50% off your first box and then 35% off your next 3 boxes. That's the link in our show notes for 50% off your first box and then 35% off your next 3 boxes. It's HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit. The Commonwealth Games is yet another example of how interconnected and interdependent our world is, and also how often things evolve past their original state, intention, or purpose. An event which was intended to signify and reminisce about the power and tyranny that Britain once held over a quarter of the world's population. These 72 nations certainly have a wealth of things in common in what Britain left behind. The English language and their bureaucratic and administrative systems, and various forts and places of historical significance. However, what these nations also have in common is the deep suffering through slavery, foreign occupation of their land, exploitation of their workforce and natural resources, the struggle for independence, the journey to unification amongst its people, thriving to grow and sustain their own economy, and the dispelling of certain myths and stereotypes that were perpetuated by the West. But it is also an event that has evolved into a celebration of the human spirit. Through our physical capabilities and mental capacity, we acknowledge teamwork, good sporting practices, fair play, diversity, inclusion, and that extra bit of magic when individuals achieve personal bests, championship, and world records. Surely the Commonwealth Games signifies this kind of wealth that we all have in common. Sport is a global economy where individual athletes rely on coaching, medical teams, research training facilities, and sponsorships from around the world. Many people's professions and livelihoods are dependent upon sport, and with this in mind, you begin to wonder how much revenue and employment the Commonwealth Games actually generates. It is also an opportunity for individual athletes to achieve a cultural and moral status, becoming national heroes in their own countries, and through this, they initiate and lead on many community projects which gradually build wealth in their home countries and which ultimately and often attract foreign investment. Usain Bolt and his compatriot Shelley Ann Fraser-Pryce are great examples of this. Sport is also a great leveller. Every one of us has a specific body type which is suited to a particular sporting discipline. Those who choose to develop their capabilities in their chosen discipline can become successful regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, or any other deprivation factor. If you're good enough, you'll succeed. However, sport isn't perfect. As inequalities and access to opportunities still exist, as well as a bias toward able-bodied, male-dominated sporting events, which still attract higher salaries and more prize money. An increase in funding and investment within specific countries across Africa and the Caribbean has been and has seen a rise in numbers of their athletes participating in events such as swimming, diving, cross-country, cycling, and even winter sports. What do you think about the Commonwealth Games? Do you think it's still relevant, or just another archaic practice that should be cancelled? How does or doesn't it contribute to our cultural legacy and identity? And is there a particular sports personality from the Commonwealth nations that you admire, and for what reason? Contact me on info@storiestobetold.com or on one of my social media platforms that you'll find on storiestobetold.com, and let me know what your views are. I'd love to hear from you. If you liked this podcast, then stay on this listening platform and listen to my other podcast episodes related to this one, such as Long to Reign Over Us, the prelude, and Long to Reign Over Us, the main act, from this, the second season, where I explore my learning journey about empire through the Platinum Jubilee. And finally, don't forget what I like to call the heart and soul of the Stories to be Told movement, my stories or poetic narratives: Caribbean Wind, Caribbean Rush, Nights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change, are all available on the website in both Kindle and paperback formats. I'm also excited about the publication of 4 new titles this summer. If you want to find out more, just visit storiestobetold.com and check out the learning platforms for The Journey's End, Giving Back Hong Kong, Bite from the Big Apple, A Story for New York, Hope for Zimbabwe, Arise the Phoenix, and A Story for South Africa. The paperbacks and Kindle versions for each title are now live on Amazon. And finally, it's my pleasure to congratulate Paul, our winner for the month of July. A copy of Aspiring Authors is on its way to you. Don't forget, if you'd like to enter the draw for a free copy of Aspiring Authors magazine for Black History Month 2022 and be in with a chance of being my winner for the month of August, then just visit the website and register for your free samples of my first 4 titles. I'll be choosing a winner every month up to and including October. Feel free to like, follow and share us on social media when you visit the website. Just click on whichever social media link you'd like to follow us on. And as always, it is a pleasure and a privilege to share my thoughts and my learning journey with you in this podcast series, and I encourage you to either begin or continue your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. I'm Tracy DW, and this is a Stories to be Told podcast. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next page.